Well, hello again, Adult Sunday School Leader. This is the last lesson in this unit called More Than a Sidekick, Serving Alongside Others. This is lesson number 6. It's on Baruch. The focal passage is out of Jeremiah chapters 36 and 45, and the point of this lesson is God will reward your faithful service. Well, when we think of God rewarding the faithful service of one of his saints, we might immediately think of God honoring someone that's done great things like Billy Graham for his decades of preaching the simple gospel message all over the world. Or maybe even Mother Teresa for her decades of selflessly ministering to the untouchables of society. What about that guy or that gal who's the behind the scenes person? You know, they're never on stage at church, but they're there every week doing what they're gifted to do. Well, you know, we're very familiar with the name Jeremiah, but not so much with the name Baruch. And that's who we're going to be looking at this week. Baruch, he was not an upfront person. He was Jeremiah's scribe or his secretary. Well, let's look at the first set of scriptures. That's in Jeremiah 36, verses 4 through 8, and that introduces us to Baruch. Well, here we see just a little bit about him. He was the son of Neriah, and he was, as I mentioned just a moment ago, Jeremiah's secretary. Baruch wrote down as Jeremiah dictated to him. Well, Jeremiah summoned Baruch one day and not just told him, but commanded him, go to the temple and read from the scroll. Why didn't Jeremiah do that himself? Well, he was God's spokesman, wasn't he? Wasn't he supposed to be the one that goes to the temple and preaches? Well, that's true, but Jeremiah said he was restricted and he could not go to the temple. And we're not really sure why he couldn't go. Was it because of being ceremonially unclean? Had he had a run-in with the priests at the temple? We not for certain on that, but for whatever reason, Jeremiah was unable to go to the temple. So he sent Baruch instead. Now, if we look back to the beginning of this chapter, we'll see that the Lord told Jeremiah to write down all the words he told Jeremiah concerning the disasters that he was planning to inflict on Judah. And this happened in the 4th year of King Jehoiakim's reign. That's important, so keep that in the back of your mind, okay? The reason God did this was to give Judah a chance to repent and to turn back to him. Well, Baruch knew what kind of reception Jeremiah had previously received when Jeremiah preached similar kinds of messages. People then were the same as they are now. They didn't want to hear a doom and gloom message. They wanted to hear that God was on their side, that he loved them, and that they were his people. But that wasn't Jeremiah's message. And those who opposed Jeremiah's message wanted him put to death. Now, can you imagine what Baruch was thinking? If he brought the same doom and gloom kind of message, was his life going to be in danger? I'm sure that had to be running through his mind. And here's the deal. Why is this message so important? Why couldn't Jeremiah wait until either his ceremonially uncleanliness went away, or maybe when things calmed down with the temple priests? Why couldn't he just wait and do it himself? Well, for one thing, God wanted it to be said, okay, so better do it. Also, too, Jeremiah, like God, wanted Judah to have another chance to repent and turn to God. So Baruch obeyed. He did everything that Jeremiah asked him to do. He went to the temple and he read from the scroll. Now, verses 11 through 15 state that a man named Micaiah heard what Baruch was reading, and he went and told several of the officials what he had heard. They summoned Baruch and asked him to read the same message to them, and he did. That takes us to our next set of scriptures down in Jeremiah 36, verses 16 through 18. You see, for 23 years, Jeremiah had been preaching a similar message. For some reason, this time something clicked. These officials knew that the king had to hear this very important message. But they asked Baruch something that might seem a little bit odd. How did you obtain this document? Did Jeremiah dictate this? Well, they asked this because they wanted to confirm the source and the authenticity of the message. The scroll contained a series of prophecies and warnings from God that were very serious, and the officials needed to verify these words were truly from Jeremiah, not just Baruch's own thoughts or ideas. And Baruch's answer was truthful and straightforward. Yes, he dictated all these words to me. He didn't try to take credit for the words. He faithfully delivered the message that his boss told him to speak. Well, later in this chapter, we can read that the king cut up the scroll into little pieces and had it burned. He had no regard for any message from Jeremiah. Well, now let's skip over to Jeremiah 45 and look at the first 5 verses of that chapter. As we look at that, notice when this happened. The 4th year of Jehoiakim's reign. Well, that's the same time as Jeremiah 36. That's 9 chapters ago. Well, see, that's the thing about reading the book of Jeremiah. It's not in chronological order. But in many of the chapters, Jeremiah gives us some time references as to what king was reigning and the number of years that king had reigned. It kind of gives us a time frame as to what was going on. So it's almost like he thought about this and wrote it down. He thought about that and wrote it down. And it may skip around chronologically, but he gives us some clues as to when it was. Well, in these verses, we see a very human side of Baruch. It appears that he's been complaining and kind of having a pity party. And here's how I read his complaint. Woe is me. I've complained so much. I'm worn out. And I can't get any rest. Why has the Lord put me through this? But here's what the Lord told Jeremiah to tell Baruch. He told him these comforting words. Don't seek worldly fame or possession, because I'm getting ready to destroy all that. I'm getting ready to destroy Judah, just as I promised. So don't seek something that's not going to be here much longer. But as for you, I'll let you escape these punishments with your life. Well, that's kind of the nutshell of this lesson here. So, but what can we take away from it? Okay, what can we take away from the lesson? Well, let's not worry about how others respond to us. Okay, and let's get that across to our classes as well. You do what God has called you to do. God rewards faithfulness, whether that's the Billy Grahams of the world, or that man who's there every Sunday handing out a bulletin with a smile. And now, I'm going to speak directly to you, Sunday school teacher, because I've been in this position a lot of times. Please continue to be faithful to your calling to teach. You know, receiving those good lesson comments, those pats on the back, those are great. But you know what? You may not get those. It's not because your lesson isn't great. It may just be that your class isn't wired to verbalize thanks. Or maybe they're just so used to the excellent teaching, they have just gotten used to it, okay? So don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged when numbers are low as well, okay? We need to count people because people count. You know, we need to be concerned when our numbers go from 20 to 2, okay? But here, I do want to quote Josh Hunt. Now, he's one of my top Sunday school gurus. I really like him and his practical approach to Sunday school. He says, you know, if you're given a class of 10 to teach and it goes from 10 to nothing, goes from 10 to 0, don't think anything about it. You're given a second class of 10 and it goes from 10 to 0. Okay, that happens from time to time. Don't worry about it. You're given a third class and it goes from 10 members to 0. Go join the choir. Okay? Well, the thing is, yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes people just don't connect with your style of teaching, and sometimes it goes to nothing. That's fine. But here's the thing. Sometimes you've got to do what you're called to do and not what you think you're called to do. Okay? Otherwise, guys, continue to be faithful. Okay, continue to be faithful in teaching. I know when I first started my Sunday school class, there was a couple of times I just wanted to give it up. But in fact, I'd have 2 people in there. And it's kind of awkward to teach. One person teach a couple. That's kind of awkward, isn't it? That continued to grow, and now we're doing really well. But had I given up on that Sunday school class would not exist. So just continue to be faithful in what God has called you to do. Whether that's teaching, handing out bulletins, whatever it is, God rewards faithfulness. Well, next week we're going to be in a new month. It's September. And a new Sunday school book, a new unit, and the new unit is called Thrive, Living on Purpose. And so purpose is going to be that topic for the 6-week study. And we're first going to be looking at purpose questioned. Okay? That's going to be out of the first few verses of the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great Sunday lesson. And don't forget, pray for and with your classes.